Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever you're watching or listening to this, and welcome to Link Up Leaders, your direct link to leaders in supply chain and e-commerce. My name is Lisa Kinski. I'm your producer and co-host, and joined as always by Francois Jeffrey. Francois, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. I feel like it's going to be a busy day all day. We just came out of one meeting straight into a pod, and then I feel like it's going to be one of those days where we don't stop running.
Well, we have exciting projects. We've talked about them for months. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's exciting to see everything come to fruition, add in, another level that we can offer a lot of our partners over here at Noviland. And so if you're a friend of the podcast, check out ModCart. It is exclusive to Metro Atlanta, but it's something that we're hoping to build out in a lot of metro areas across the U.S. So this is just the start.
Just the start.
Just to start.
I put it out on Facebook, and I some friends that live in Charleston had actually posted that they wanted to shop on it, but it wasn't in their market. And we haven't talked about Charleston yet, so that might be one to consider.
Yeah, Charleston's awesome. There was one thing aside from that, one thing that you brought up yesterday that was terrifying when you sent it over to me. And I don't know if anyone else has seen it, but if you're listening to this live, the railway in downtown Los Angeles, a lot of containers were raided, or they were hijacked, like train pirates hijacking these trains and opening these containers and taking e-commerce products out. That's nuts.
I know. I hadn't even heard of it. It was Monica Pradillo with Seller Logic that told me about it yesterday. She's like, "Oh yeah, everything going on in LA." And I was like, "What happened in LA?"
Yeah.
Like, we were doing a 5K on Monday. Like, I was like, I don't know, I've been head down in ModCart. Like, what's happening with the world? Yeah.
And on top of that, the underwater volcano that erupted and that impacted, Australia, that flooded a big part of Santa Cruz, apparently, in California. So it's just
I haven't even heard about that.
These past few years have been a complete mess for supply chain.
Not even just supply chain, just like the weather. I swear, if I don't come into the office and Jack says, "Hey, you hear it's going to snow on Friday," I would be none the wiser that it's going to snow on Friday. I need to watch the news. Gosh, I'm so bad about stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I casually will pick up on things just browsing, and then it turns into one headline story that has nothing to do with it. But then you look into well, how is that affecting the next thing? Let's say ports. Oh, how is that affecting port? Well, now you're seeing port delays. How's that affecting the trucks that are waiting for it? The chassis. It's just it's a snowball effect. And I think that conversation we've had so many times with so many of our guests, and I think with today's guests even, we'll see over the past 2 years, especially how supply chain and advertising has actually evolved and really meshed together. I think in a more mature fashion than probably 5-10 years ago.
Yeah, definitely. So let's go on ahead and bring on our guest today. We have with us Laura McCaul, calling in from the UK, co-founder of Sponsored Profit. Laura, how are you?
Hi, I'm very well, thank you. Pleased to be here. How are you guys?
Doing very well. Thank you for joining us on your Wednesday afternoon. You're more than halfway done with the week on your end. Very jealous.
Yeah, almost through hump day. So yeah, getting there.
One of our team members is actually going to the UK soon in the next few months. Well, I think he's going to Piccadilly Square is what he said he was going to.
I don't know. He's been talking about his girlfriend found flights, and he like, "We need to book this."
They bought flights yesterday.
Did they?
Yeah.
Oh, she won out. Well, there we go.
Okay. Nice. And so where are they going? Did you say Piccadilly Circus? So London? Or
I think so. Yeah, that's where they're looking into.
Right.
And he's a big soccer fan, so he's looking into going to the Man U. Oh. Hopefully, he'll bring some more culture back to the office.
Well, I don't know about that from a soccer perspective, but you never know. But he's coming over for a good time for it. There's a lot of great matches going on. So
yeah.
Well, good. Yeah, I think they were going to go in April, so I don't know. Nice. If that's prime time for them, but
the title race will be heating up, although I think it might be a foregone conclusion already, but yeah, the season comes to an end in May, so if it's still an open field, I don't think it is, but Normally that's when things really start to hot up, but
Ooh,
Gotcha.
well, exciting stuff.
Definitely. Well, Laura, thank you again for being here. We would love to hear just a little bit about you and your background and how you found your way into what has become a crazy world of Amazon advertising over the last few years.
I mean, to be honest with you, completely by accident. So, I've had a pretty varied background, a number of careers in a number of places. I've traveled. I was listening with interest actually when you were talking about what was going on in LA. I actually lived in LA for several years, and so yeah, it sounds like it's with the hijacking of freight
I'll
trains.
send you the article.
Yeah, it's
Crazy,
crazy. The pictures are
Yeah.
nuts. They're
Yeah.
bonkers. It's
It's
boxes
just-
everywhere.
It's
Products,
just
people opening
pilfered
boxes
product
and
like all
yeah.
over these train tracks for like
Wow.
what seems like miles. I don't know how long it actually is. I'll send it to you though. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
And you know what LA's like? It's just, it's so spread out. It's like
Right.
huge. So, but yeah, so I started out in executive recruitment in the technology sector, technology for banks and financial services. And from there, I traveled around the world. I did that in London, Dublin, Hong Kong, and Sydney, Australia. And then having gone through kind of the cyclical boom and bust cycle a few times, I decided to do something completely different. So I studied horticulture at UCLA in Los Angeles. And so I worked in garden design for several years. And then when I decided to return to the UK, I didn't feel like working outside. Funnily enough, the Southern California sunshine was great, and then thought of coming back and gardening in the British wintertime. I was like, yeah, not so jazzed about that. But that's when the Amazon opportunity, I became aware of, selling on Amazon. And so I was like, well, I've got a few ideas for some awesome garden tools. So maybe I'll do that. So I started my own gardening brand, and I launched several products I sold in the UK, Germany, and US marketplaces. And from there, I pivoted then from seller to service provider, because I met my two business partners at a live seller event in Vegas a few years ago. And in a sea of Americans and American accents, as soon as you hear a couple of British accents, you sort of like kind of
your ears perk.
Your ears prick up.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, my people, where are my people? And so Daryl, Tim, myself, we became friends. We each had very different strengths when we were running our businesses. So I was good at writing high converting product listings. Daryl was brilliant with PPC, and Tim was a real system and processes guy, SOPs and stuff. So the three of us kind of started helping each other out with each other's businesses. And then, the Amazon selling space, it's a very small world. And so, then sort of seller friends of ours started asking, oh, hey, can you help me out with my listing? Hey, can you take a look at my PPC? And then kind of word kind of spread. So that's how we all made the transition from sellers to service providers, because, we had the opportunity, or opportunities were presenting themselves to us to provide services. So we started Sponsored Profit. It'll be 4 years ago this year, and yeah, we just provide Amazon PPC, and yeah, that's how it all began. And so, as I look back on, my different careers and moves, it seems kind of haphazard, but what I've realized is the theme that runs throughout all of those things is I'm a bit of a builder. And what's really ironic about that is my dad was a builder, but, I built teams when I worked in recruitment. I built gardens when I worked in landscape design. Then I built a brand selling on Amazon, and now we help other brands build businesses on Amazon too. So that's kind of like the themes throughout, which is kind of a strange one, but kind of cool, because I finally feel now that I can kind of make sense of all this kind of, haphazard moves and sort of, circumnavigating the globe. So
That's
that's it in a nutshell.
very cool though. I don't know that a lot of people, even upon some, introspection, would come up with that theme of those different careers of being a builder. That's very, very cool. But going back to something you said, that you had some really cool ideas for gardening tools. Did you actually go the route of product development and make your own product? Did you make a
Oh,
custom item?
no, and when I was talking to suppliers, there was the opportunity at the time to, for tooling and stuff like that, but no, I didn't go down that path just because, that's a massive commitment, and so had I stayed selling long enough when maybe that might have been viable, sure, but certainly what I could do was bring my knowledge and experience from landscape to design, say, okay, so these are the things that always really frustrated me about these products or these tools. So is there a way that, we can, this part can work better, or we don't need this? And so what it made the product selection, the product sourcing part easier, because I was already knowing what I was kind of looking out for or what I was wanting to avoid. So
Yeah.
that was, that was helpful.
And to that point, is that something where you were very self-taught? Did you watch a lot of videos on just how to sell on Amazon? Did you take a course? Did you go through the entire process yourself, from product sourcing, development, listing, PPC, all of it yourself?
Yep. So I went through what's now amazing.com.
Okay.
It was ASM, it was Amazing Selling Machine. When I did it, that was I think 2015. And so, yeah, I mean, and that was very much an A to Z of selling. But of course, it gives you, like a lot of courses, they give you a comprehensive overview, which is kind of a misnomer, right? Because it's like,
a
well,
framework.
Is it comprehensive or is it an overview? But it does kind of, it kind of gives you kind of the 360, and it gives you enough to kind of get you going. But it's like anything, the only way you learn is by doing. And there's a lot to learn, because there's a lot that can go wrong, but then there's a lot that can go right. So it's, you can watch the videos and they have great sort of support communities as well. But yeah, the only way to do it is just to do it, and go for it. And yeah, it was a lot harder than I thought.
Yeah.
But I'm a Taurian, so I'm very stubborn. So I was like, well, I'm doing it, so I'm just going to keep going. And that's what makes, I think, the course is one thing, but the community is really key. So whether it's the support communities, the live events, even now sort of as a service provider, and now live events thankfully are coming back. It's the communities. It's the, I'm still in contact with sellers. I met at, these live events back in 2015 and 16 in Vegas. I was actually messaging one on Facebook yesterday. So, you do form friendships. They are quite tight-knit communities, and that's really important from a support perspective. Hey, I'm having a hard time with this. Any ideas? To just, the more social side of things, and being able to catch up over. It's been more over Zoom calls recently than over beers, but hopefully we'll go back to that. But it's a great community because there's so many people, trying to build businesses and create opportunities for themselves, in this space. I think we're very fortunate, but it's the support, I think, in the community that makes the difference, that kind of gets you over those humps. And that gets you to move forward, and that's really, really key.
Yeah, definitely agree.
And have you seen, or how have you seen, sort of this space of I think e-commerce in general? I mean, we could talk specifically about Amazon, but just the world of e-commerce evolve since 2015 to today. I mean, it's 7 years seems like a very short time, but I feel like in just the past 2 years, so much has evolved, right? So much has changed. Is there anything really notable that you saw stick out?
Gosh, I mean, yeah, it's kind of night and day. I mean, I think, I mean, off the top of my head, I mean, the obvious changes is in that time how Amazon has become more brand focused. So what I mean by that is it's not just about selling stuff now. Sure, you can, sell a widget or a garlic press or a good old fashioned silicon spatula. We love to give that as an example. And what you had back then, and still to an extent today, but not to the same degree, is people sold products because they had a good opportunity. They didn't necessarily have I want to build a brand of gardening tools or cookware or outdoor fitness, whatever. It was kind of more about, what can I sell that will make that will sell and will make me some money. So it was kind of a bit haphazard. And sort of over the past few years now, what we've seen from Amazon with how product listings have evolved. Now we have storefronts, when they introduce A+ content and enhanced brand content, all of these things, videos, all of these things have kind of started sort of shepherding, at least I feel, for third-party sellers, sort of shepherding more of a cohesive kind of branding sort of direction, because obviously for Amazon, customer experience is key. It's one of their core values, and certainly how they believe sellers, whether it's first-party sellers, they obviously are established brands, or third-party sellers, is creating that brand experience. And that really is all about how customer engagement on the listings, in the videos, in the content, to kind of give more of a brand experience, a brand story, whatever it is, that the shopper is resonating with that brand, as opposed to just buying a widget because I need a widget. So I think the whole shift towards branding, and that's continuing, and I think we'll see a lot more video in terms of advertising this year, and branding's really key for videos. So I think the shift towards branding is one. Amazon advertising has changed beyond recognition, from the perspective where it was really just keyword driven. Now it's a lot more sophisticated. There's more advertising types, more advertising formats, more targeting options, and more sophisticated. You can target your ads on, to engage with customers on and off the platform. I mean, that was unheard of 7 years ago. And actually, before, we even sort of jump into the changes on Amazon advertising, I mean, heck, when I started selling, you didn't even need to advertise. And when you did, your bids were, a couple of cents, for your main keywords. I mean, those are the those are the good old days. Like, everyone goes, "Oh, you remember the time when?" Like, yeah, we remember. But but at the same time, there are a lot more opportunities now for sellers and brands to get in front of customers and to engage in different ways, in different places, to build brand awareness, to drive repeat purchases. There's a lot more opportunities for that as well. So, and we've seen that with the increase in amount of paid real estate. I mean, for me, I work on a desktop most of the time, so I still talk about things above the fold, but I have to remember that most people do their shopping on these things. But even when you go to the search results now, when you're looking for whatever product it is that you're looking for, there's a handful, if that, of organic placements on the search results. Everything else is paid, from the brand's ads at the banner at the top. You'll have video ads throughout, carousels and so forth. So, it has changed. But what it means is that, I still believe there's a lot more opportunity for brands and sellers to engage and sell their products to consumers. It's just going more down a paid route, at least initially. But yeah, it's because in that same time, people can be cynical and go, oh yeah, it's pay to play now, and Amazon's just getting greedy. It's all about the advertising. But if you think about it, you think about, how many more Prime customers there are now. I mean,
Right.
Prime was pretty new again back in 2015. You think of, how many sellers, shoppers, go to Amazon. There's stats to the effect of something like, 46% of shopping starts on Amazon. Like, oh, I need to buy a birthday present for, Johnny. 46%, I think, something like that, people go to Amazon to get gift ideas. I mean, so, that's huge. So I think you have to kind of weigh up the huge inbuilt demand there is on Amazon with the fact that in order to service that demand, a lot of that will be through paid advertising, but a lot of it will be organic too. So that's a very long-winded way of me saying, in terms of changes, Amazon advertising is massive, but so that the branding piece, I think is massive, too. I think those would probably be the two key changes and evolutions for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's changed so much in the fact that, probably 7 years ago, you searched up mugs, you might have had 20 pages, and now you have hundreds of pages of different types of coffee mugs. I mean, it's hard for it not to be pay to play, right? You mentioned all the new Prime customers, but also all the increased competition. It's an open marketplace.
Yeah, for sure. And it again, it wasn't a prerequisite, several years ago. It is now. But what it also means is that you just have to be really, really focused on, whether it's from your keywords or whether it's, your target customer. It is counterintuitive, but almost the more focused you are and specific in what you're selling, who you're selling it to, the keywords or the search terms that your ads are going to be triggered for in terms of, putting your ads in front of the right shoppers at the right time, that's more important. But by doing that, you actually succeed. When you kind of throw mud at a wall to see what will stick, it's very haphazard. It can be very expensive. And you kind of, you sell here and there. Whereas if you're kind of more focused, you can kind of build up some consistency and, carve out your little piece of the pie, and it's a big pie, but you kind of carve out your little piece rather than, oh, well, maybe I'll grab some over here and I'll sell to so-and-so over here. And this is for moms and pops and uncles and aunties. And, the old adage, you sell to everyone, you sell to no one. So, so yeah, I think that's really key as well with the advertising piece to stand out, but to kind of start getting focused on who you want to sell to and how you want to sell to them.
Well, it also seems, at least I've noticed over the past couple years, that Amazon is very rewarding of those that are first, right? Those that are first on live, those that are first on being part of the sponsored ads, those that are first that are part of DSP. Is there anywhere that you're finding, Amazon releasing these new pieces of real estate? Do they send out a memo to all the accounts? I don't imagine so. I imagine you have to go to these conferences.
If only. I mean, Amazon, they just drop stuff and it's just like, oh, this is new.
That's new. Yeah.
Yeah. No heads up whatsoever. So I think there's a couple of things in that. I think in terms of rewarding, first, let's say early adopters, let's say, certainly when it comes to advertising is all about data, and aged data wins, because what we're having to do in advertising, what we're having to do as sellers, as advertisers, is the algorithm is very, very smart. But we need to feed the algorithm. We need to tell the algorithm when we're launching a new product. We need to tell the algorithm, what search terms and keywords we want to show for, right? What are we relevant for? What are we not relevant for? So positive keywords, negative keywords. So, and then the algorithm kind of starts to juice up. So, so when it comes to aged campaigns certainly trump, right? Because all of a sudden the algorithm is is understanding what your product is, how much you're willing to pay, excuse me, where you want to be shown. And so as that builds up, yeah, what that means is, you'll find which ads perform better, which keywords you convert better on, because again, it's all about relevancy, but then also conversion, right? Because Amazon want to show customers, and they're their customers, they're Amazon's customers, they're not mine, they're not yours, they're not the sellers, whether it's a paid ad or whether it's an organic placement, when that search term goes in the bar, Amazon wants to show the most relevant, high converting offer they can, because they want to get the sale. And so, data takes time to accumulate, to optimize, to fine tune. So the longer you have campaigns running, the more optimized your data is, the better informed decisions you can make. And yeah, you'll get rewarded over time if you're converting really well on certain keywords, certain products, certain listing pages, what have you. Yeah, you'll see a reward in terms of lower cost per clicks, higher click-through rates, whatever it is, because Amazon's wanting to learn what is going to sell. And so they're kind of adding that all up. So I think that is in one respect how Amazon rewards, based on, time, like let's say sort of aged sales history, right? Sales history is key. The other part, I think, Francoise, is when it comes to new formats, they do tend to convert better at first because there's less competition. So, for example, video ads, part of the sponsored brand ads, video ads convert really, really well. If for no other reason than video versus static text, converts much better because people can engage, in a better way with a 30-second video, not even 30-second, 11-second video than kind of scrolling through a listing page or looking at images. So, when video ads, first came out, they not only converted really well, they were kind of really cheap. So Amazon's kind of rewarding you for kind of testing it out. But a lot of that reward is coming from the fact that there isn't as many people using video ads. That's now changed. Video ads are more expensive, but they still convert really well. But yeah, that's another sense, I think, that they reward first, early adopters, as it were.
Is that something where it would follow sort of this 80-20 rule, where 80% of, let's say, all of your efforts and your resources are allocated towards what is converting, and 20% would go to, let's say, testing out video ads or testing out a live stream or an influencer on a live stream?
Yeah.
Do you have that sort of rule apply to any businesses that you work with?
Oh my God. We are all about the 80-20 rule.
Okay.
So it's just like you crawled inside my head. I mean, that's how we manage our business, but that is also how we manage our clients' campaigns. So we apply that 80-20 in multiple ways. So if we start at the top, you 80-20 your products, right? Because 20% of your product catalog is going to be driving 80% of your sales. So we want to prioritize those. And we'll come on to that if we get to talk about inventory management and the challenges being faced with stock limits.
Absolutely.
You've absolutely now got to go, what are my best sellers? What are my highest converting products? Because those are the products that you've got to make sure that you're keeping in stock and that you are sort of constantly replenishing, right? So it starts at the product level, and then certainly you can go down to 80-20 your PPC campaigns. So, which campaigns, are driving most of the sales. You can go a layer down again in terms of keywords. You'll have 20% of your keywords driving 80% of your sales. So that's how we apply 80-20 in terms of, what is driving sales. And we want to be focusing our efforts, our ad dollars on those. And then similarly, when it comes to kind of budget allocation, we want 80% going on the stuff that is working. So they're converting, they're driving sales. We want to make sure we're putting 80% of our budget towards, those worker bee campaigns and keywords. But then we do want 20% for ongoing testing, because again, you only get to find good keywords, good campaigns, good ads by testing, right? And you're going to find stuff that doesn't work, but that's the only way you can find the stuff that does work. You've just got to test it. And you've got to, just quickly make informed decisions once you have enough data to make that decision. So yeah, I mean, 80/20 is, it's always where we tell sellers to start. Like, Amazon advertising and Amazon PPC, it's complicated. There's no doubt about it. But we like to kind of break it down to its core components. It's bids and it's keywords. It's like, you allocate on an 80/20 basis. You kind of look to break things down at that kind of, it's very basic, but I think it's very helpful to kind of block out all the other noise and the stuff that can get a little overwhelming. And it's just about bids, and keywords, as I said, and putting your ad dollars to what's working, what is making you money, what is working, do more of that. What is, sucking the cash out of your campaigns, do less of that. Oversimplified perhaps, but that's a really good place to start.
Well, the oversimplification is even overwhelming. I don't imagine how one person can actually, let's say just go through the entire process and 80/20 every single thing and effectively manage it. It's one thing to 80/20 and say, oh, okay, I think I should be doing this. But the execution portion of it, it seems like you would need a team of 10 or 15 people to actually manage your inventory effectively, manage your PPC effectively. Otherwise, it could be a money suck.
Oh, look, absolutely. I mean, so that's where the role of technology kind of comes in. Now, we're a little different in that we built our own tech. And I think, there were a couple of reasons for that. When we started the business, Daryl in particular, my business partner, who's like the chief geek, he tested a whole bunch of tools already on the market, and he was like, yeah, this tool's good for this, but it's not so great at that. He was just like, I think we'll just build our own. I'm like, oh, that sounds hard, but okay. And so what we've got is we manage our campaigns at scale by bulk files, so you can make multiple changes to multiple campaigns. So we built our own software to automate a lot of that repetitive analysis type work, but then we still we describe ourselves as a semi-automated agency because we still want to have sort of eyes on the campaigns to see what's happening, to have the most control over budget, but also the most flexibility. So because we built our own tech, it kind of allows us to do both, which if you think about it is, again, it's a bit of a misnomer, right? It's like, well, do you want like flexibility or do you want control? It's like, well, actually we want both. But we can get both if we build it ourselves. But if we buy an off-the-shelf piece of software, you don't have that built in. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's a lot of data. When you've got one product, you can do it. And then you start selling 2 products, then 3, then 4, then 5. And when you consider this, you can have up to 40 different campaigns per SKU across sponsored ads, across products, brands, and display. Imagine that. 40 campaigns, and then imagine that over 10 products. Now we don't
5 products, even 200
it's
campaigns.
Just like, so we don't have that. We actually use a slightly different strategy, but again, all of our clients, they have multiple campaigns. So yeah, that's when you need that. Okay, there's not enough people to do this. I always think of don't know if you remember that old film Jason and the Argonauts, and you got all the guys sort of rowing in the bottom of the ship, and it's sort of like, that's how I kind of imagine if we didn't have tech, there'd just be a whole load of us just and our eyes would be kind of spinning. So we're like, okay, we got to build something to do this.
Well, and does your tool allow them to have any kind of inventory management in there? So kind of coming back to that and the conversation of doing it holistically as opposed to these silos, because how well your campaign does obviously determines how much you're selling. It's going to affect your inventory and how well you manage that. I mean, kind of what's the feedback loop, I guess, between your campaign performance and your inventory management, or vice versa, or
Yeah, so that's a good question. So no, our tool doesn't sort of take that into account. But again, through access to our client seller central accounts, we have access to the inventory tab, so we can keep an eye on that. Now that's really the purview though of our clients, and that we meet on a monthly basis on a Zoom call. We have sort of communication in between, but that is really key. We're like, our job is to sell products. Your job is to stay in stock. And it's not always that simple. And especially the last couple of years with COVID and then last year in particular with the fluctuating inventory storage limits, it's super challenging. And this business now selling on Amazon it's an inventory management business. It's and that's very hard to do. So the connection between PPC and inventory management, PPC is affected by almost every other component in your FBA business. So obviously there's the conversion side. So, how compelling is your offer? How competitive is your price? How, good is your main image? What's your star rating? How many reviews? There's all of that. But there is also, you've got to have the buy box. And obviously you need to be in stock as well. So essentially what happens, going back to what I said about sales history and age data, you can kind of optimize your campaigns and they can kind of be firing on all cylinders. What will happen as you obviously start to get low in stock, again, the algorithm will pick this up because, again, going back to the customer experience piece, Amazon want to put organic listings or ads in front of customers to ensure they get, to try and ensure they get a sale and to make sure they have a good experience. That is not going to happen if Amazon serves them an ad or a listing for a product that isn't in stock, right? Like you get to that page and then you're like, oh, it's not in stock. So that's a slap on the wrist. Amazon don't like that. And so that's how, the relationship between inventory and PPC is formed. And so what will then happen is when you do stock out, and depending how long you are out of stock, there's a few things that are going to happen. Obviously, your organic ranking is going to drop. And even,
is that your BSR?
So BSR.
Sorry to cut you off, but
it's BSR. So it's your ranking, in your category and then your subcategory. So what that means is you'll start slipping off the pages, right? You'll start moving down. So there's that part, and then there is the other side of that is then as soon as you get back in stock, your cost per clicks might be higher. You won't bounce back into the same ad position you were in before. So it's almost like it's a funny way to compare it, but I always think of this because I've lived in other countries. I've had to apply for visas, and often what happens with visas is you're on a clock, and it's how many times you spend in country, and then so when I was in Australia and applying for permanent residency, you kind of have to be in there a certain amount of time before you can apply for citizenship. So then every time you leave the country, it's like the clock starts to go backwards kind of thing, right? And so this is kind of similar in that, you can optimize your ads. So you're getting the best bids. So you're not overpaying for your bids. You're not underpaying. You get the best placements that you convert on well. So you kind of get all these things really finely tuned. And then you go out of stock and it's like all that good work starts to go backwards. And then so you get back in stock and you've got to re-optimize to where you were again. But again, it stands to reason. Amazon aren't going to show you whether as an organically ranked listing or as an ad if you're not in stock. They're not going to show you. Your ads would stop anyway. But if you're low in stock, they're going to start thinking, well, hang on. If all things being equal, there's another product, same price, same review, same everything as yours, but they're in stock and you're not. Guess whose ad's going to start getting shown? Because again, Amazon's thinking, what's the best experience? Where are we likely to make the sale? So that's really, really important. So again, as you can imagine, with the fluctuating changes in the storage limits, this is proving quite challenging because to kind of give you an example, coming off the back of Q4 is what most sellers wait for, right? It's
Sure.
the quarter to really kind of sort of make their year.
Mhm.
And oftentimes sellers will go aggressive. They'll start aggressive, more aggressively on bids, more keywords. That didn't happen to the same extent this last quarter. We still had a good quarter for our clients, but clients were less aggressive because they're like, I don't want to stock out. And if I do stock out, I
Mhm.
don't know how quickly I can replenish.
Restock, yeah.
So yeah, so that, which was kind of interesting and completely understandable. So yeah, at the moment, there's this very fine balance now between how you can use, let's say, PPC to drive sales to kind of bump, your inventory limits back up, but how do sellers work around that in terms of having a cohesive supply chain or a robust replenishment strategy to go, whether it's, we've got a 3PL, so we know we're going to run out of stock. We know our storage limit's lower, so we're going to kind of,
Mhm.
maybe sell in 30-day cycles, but make sure our 3PL is good to go. So we're ready to kind of, replenish as soon as needed. Something else we've done for a lot of sellers is we would have them create an FBA product listing, so fulfilled by Amazon, and also an
Mhm.
FBM listing. So
Yeah.
then they can go kind of merchant fulfilled as soon as they're out of stock. There's seller fulfilled Prime now as an option as well. So sellers are having to have a few different kind of tools in their arsenal now to go, okay, it's not going to be potentially a seamless inventory management scenario now. I'm going to have to
Mhm.
maybe have FBM as a backup. I'm going to maybe have to have a 3PL as a backup.
Yeah.
And again, then coming back to what we were talking about, the 80-20, what it means is that you've just got to get really focused on knowing what products sell well, when it comes to advertising, what search terms and keywords are performing well. You focus your budget on that. It's kind of like less is more. You've just got to get really, really focused on, what is going to, what's going to work, and in a way that kind of gives you more control, knowing that
Mhm.
the inventory management side of things is very, very challenging. So you have to get, if anything, a little bit more granular
Mhm.
about everything. So it's not easy, but at the same time, I think that's where now, with so many different hats that sellers have to wear, and they've always had to wear lots of different hats. I think when you get to a certain size and scale, it does make sense to start working with, whether it's PPC agencies or whether it's with a
Mhm.
3PL or whoever it is. But when your business gets to a size where all of a sudden, it's a lot more complicated than when you first started out with one
Right.
product, and you have to start
Yeah.
making decisions as to, I'm going to need some help here because there's kind of too many moving parts, for me to kind of stay on top of everything.
It's
Yeah.
daunting. I'm
Yeah.
not even a seller, I just got overwhelmed. I'm like, "Oh my
Oh
god."
God.
Well, I think it's
Listen, it's still a great opportunity. Everyone
yeah.
still, Amazon is not over. Don't worry.
But I think the conversation is definitely shifting from being just a seller to being a business. And I've definitely seen the conversation around supply chain also change over the past 6 years of being with Noviland, go from management of supply chain to resilience
Mm.
and seeing, hey, what are these added tools and partners that we can add in? Like, we had a great conversation with Chelsea Cohen a
Yeah,
good
from
while back
Selftaught.
from
Yeah.
Selftaught.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's
Amazing,
great.
amazing tool that I think so many sellers would be able to benefit from if they started implementing it a few years, especially because then they would have understood, hey, what are the
Mhm.
actual challenges and what are the pieces of inventory management that I'm missing, right?
Mm.
I know, and I think a lot of times when I used to have these conversations and our customer care team has these conversations, it's around, I want a product, I need to order it from the supplier, it takes 30 days to get there. Well,
Mm.
what about all the intricacies in between, right? What if the carriers are increasing their prices? What if there's port
Mhm.
delays? Who's responsible for those payments?
Yeah.
now all of a sudden, what if you have a PPC campaign planned out and it's stuck in the port of LA for 3 or 4 weeks because you can't get a chassis? And it's like, what if Amazon takes a few weeks to check it? There's so many more layers to this that it's not that I get excited about the conversation, but it's I'm glad that the conversation is finally happening. That it is not just a seller. This is it's hard to be just a side hustle player in this nowadays. When a few years ago you could be, it was a perfect supply chain, I would call it, and the bubble is almost bursting. So
the game has changed.
The game has changed completely. As your customers sort of scaled back on PPC in Q4. How have they been handling the PPC cost increases over the past few years?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, yeah, it does feel like sellers have got like a ton of different challenges coming in
all thrown at them
from
at
all
once.
directions. Yeah. And looking, and it's a fair point. And so, average cost per click. So, what you actually pay when somebody clicks on your ads, increased last year. What we saw across our clients, anywhere between 40 to 80%, depending on the product category. So it's quite a hike. So when you add that to higher cost of goods, more expensive freight, it is a lot to contend with. So what what that means is that you have to be, you have to have a very adaptive strategy, and you have to constantly be looking at, again, what's working in your campaigns and what's not, because all of a sudden a keyword that you converted really well on, all of a sudden, if the cost per clicks are going up, and let's say your conversion stays the same, something called ACOS, your advertising cost of sale, is going to go up. So you're going to have all these pressures. So what it means is you have to look at the data and you have to go, what, that we can't go for that keyword anymore. It's too expensive. We're not going to make any money if we get clicked on that keyword. So that's why you need that 20% testing budget, because you need to constantly be finding other keywords. Either it's keywords that are, again, going to drive new sales, or keywords that are just more cost effective, because you have to make the decision in terms of, do I want to make sales or do I want to make money? And the two aren't the same. And so that's how you can combat it. So it's not like there isn't a workaround for it, but you have to just go, okay, that keyword was great. Thank you so much for your service, but we're just going to have to pause you for now, and we're going to have to replace you with something else. So there's always been this saying in and around PPC of, you don't set and forget your campaigns, and when that used to get told, people used to say that a few years ago, it didn't, it doesn't have the same meaning as it does today. Like, you cannot just go, oh yeah, I'm done. I got my keywords, I got my campaign set up, I'm good to go. You've got to be, regularly reviewing, testing, optimizing, monitoring, because stuff changes all the time. So yeah, you just have to be more on top of it. And again, that's why people, I think, need more help now, because even from a scaling perspective, when you want to kind of grow your business, what gets you to $25,000 a month in sales from an advertising perspective won't necessarily get you to $50,000 per month, won't get you to $100,000 a month. There's going to be different formats, targeting options, keywords, campaign types, whatever it is that you need to start harnessing and using in order to get you to grow, because it's not going to be that linear path on its own. You've got to be adaptive and dynamic about it. So advertising isn't going anywhere, and there is a way to remain competitive. You've just got to be smarter, and you've got to be open to doing different things.
Yeah, I mean, it's just continuous improvement, right? Continuous improvement of processes, and not being married to frameworks at the end of the day. Like you said, it's if it gets you to $25,000, that's great. But is there a certain time frame that you suggest that they think about what is the next thing? Is there like, hey, if you're at 25,000 for 6 months and you really wanted to get to 50,000, you should start to sort of break this ideal framework that got you to that level and start to look at other tools or start to look at agencies that could help you get there. Are there any of those types of conversations around?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think, firstly, again, it's not necessarily about doing more ad formats, more targeting options. Sure, there is that, but I think sponsored products is where you need to start. And there are some targeting options. Product targeting, came out a couple of years ago and was a game changer and still is. That's when you can identify competitor ASINs, and you can say, I want my ads to appear on these ASINs pages. So when you're starting out, you're going to just be working with some, or you should be working with some sort of basic match type campaigns, an order campaign, an exact, and a broad. Not a phrase, that's contentious, and that's a conversation for another time, which I'll be happy to have. But we've kind of we don't give phrase a lot of attention anymore, and so maybe that's your basic framework. So the next sort of iteration is the product targeting. We've noticed that when we've grown campaigns, that's like the first kind of step up, that kind of to the point you can kind of see 30% gains by all of a sudden appearing on competitor pages. So so that's a big thing. I think with, you can have some single keyword campaigns. That's huge for us now. Now we've built a tool to do this internally, but again, when you find your best converting keywords, you put them in their own campaign with their own budget. Again, we've seen phenomenal success of that, because what we want to do is we want to protect the budget. We know these are worker bee keywords, so we want to give them their own budget and protect it from other keywords nibbling at those ad dollars. We want to, we want to protect that. So single keyword campaigns, that's another big one. I think when you make the jump from sponsored products to sponsored brands, so you have that headline ad now. You need to be brand registered, but you can drive ads to a storefront. Like when you drive sponsored brand ads to a storefront, your storefront is like your own website on Amazon.
Right.
And there are no competitor listings in sight. As soon as you go on that storefront, it's all about your brand and your products, which is huge. So, that's another kind of, there's a few different kind of steps you can take. When you take that step, you can see huge results. Video ads, you can see huge results. But of course, you need to do this in a very systematic and considered way, because it all costs money. The more campaigns you want to run, the more keywords you want to advertise against, the more ad formats you want to use, you need to be increasing your ad budget as you fund that expansion, right? So you don't want to run before you can walk. But all these things as part of a systematic, logical, long-term strategy, might I say as well. Like this is not overnight. And I think we've seen this with, the somewhat recent changes of terms to service around, essentially manipulating rankings with driving traffic off, and then with, get coupons to pay zero for your product and stuff. That was all kind of spiking the algorithm. PPC is the most terms of service compliant way to sell and promote your products. It ain't going anywhere, and it's never not going to be compliant. But it can be a slower burner. And when you have, like a few years back, with review manipulation and all this kind of stuff, you can game the system for a while. Right. But Amazon catches up. The thing you got to remember is Amazon is a behemoth. So they know when this stuff's going on. It just takes them time to catch up. But it good stuff happens as well. With hijackers and all this other stuff. I think Amazon is really, has made a lot of improvements to make it a lot safer place to sell and a level playing field. But PPC is a long-term play, but it's still the most effective direct marketing channel for sellers to connect with Amazon shoppers. But it takes time, because again, it's data. you've got to test the data, you've got to optimize it, you've got to monitor it. It's not overnight, but as long as your expectations are, if you're a serious business, you're serious about building a brand, and you've got to take that longer term view, and not, if I'm not sitting on a beach in 30 days time, what went wrong? It's just like, it's not that,
Yeah.
we'd all be sitting on the beach, believe you me.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, it's not that easy. But so I think that's really important to bear in mind as well, that it is a long-term play. But again, it's the overwhelming benefit, I think, for Amazon is just that built-in demand. I mean, there's just gazillions of shoppers waiting to buy your products.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's PPC ain't going nowhere, and we're going to have you back on again to dive even deeper into stuff, because we've already come to our hour. It's crazy.
Yeah, that was a fast hour.
But Laura, before we let you go and finish up your day, would you mind telling us a little bit more about Sponsored Profit, and maybe give us an idea of what an ideal client looks like for you guys, in case anybody's interested in working with you?
Oh, fantastic. Well, yeah, I mean, essentially, we're an Amazon advertising agency. We work with brands who are, typically generating sort of $25,000 to $50,000 per month, up to around 250,000. There are some exceptions. That's kind of our sweet spot. And yeah, really, we're looking to partner with ambitious brands who are looking to grow and scale. So they're looking to kind of get their business to the next level. If you go to sponsoredprofit.com, you can schedule a call. We also have some PDF resources that you will find helpful, either in terms of questions to ask an agency, or one in particular that is useful for sellers of all sizes and levels of experience, which is how to write an ad ready product listing. So how to put together a really compelling offer so your ads convert well. So that's at sponsoredprofit.com / need to check now. Checklist. There you go. The clue was in the title.
/ checklist. Perfect.
Yeah. Sponsoredprofit.com / checklist. My business partner Tim will be horrified that I forgot that. So I'll get a telling off now when he hears this. He's like, I can't believe you didn't remember that. Sorry.
You just spent an hour talking about all things PPC. I think you can get let off the hook for that one.
Yeah.
Awesome, Laura. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We've really appreciated your time.
No, thank you for having me. And I hope I haven't bamboozled you too much.
No, I would just wash my hands and hire Sponsored Profit. Honestly, if I was between those sizes, it seems a lot easier to have someone else manage a lot of this for me than, and for me to focus on like something I would be really good at. If I'm really good at supply chain, let someone else handle all the ads for me.
Yeah. And that in a nutshell is our ideal client, someone who's just like, you know what, you do it. So you just summed it up. So thank you for the advertisement.
You're welcome.
And thank you for everybody who's tuned in today. If you guys liked what you heard, be sure to give us a thumbs up, comment with your thoughts, share this episode with your friends. Be sure to subscribe to the show and turn on those notifications. That way you never miss an episode where we speak with leaders in supply chain and e-commerce like Laura McCaul with Sponsored Profit. Thank you again so much.
Thank you.
And we'll talk to you guys
Bye,
soon.